Welcome to this episode of Our Voices, Our Hopes. I am joined by Nancy Reyes, President, TBWA, Chiat, New York. Welcome, Nancy. I'm so happy to have you join us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Like me, eres Latina, first generation. How does that shape your identity personally and professionally?
Yeah, this is a great question and one that I've been thinking so much about over the past year. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I'm going to date myself a little bit. And my mom is from El Salvador. My father is from Bayamon, Puerto Rico. But we grew up like an immigrant family, which meant that we were constantly in survival mode. And in the 70s and 80s, we were taught that the key to survival was assimilation, which essentially is the opposite of the kind of conversation that we're having today. Assimilation was all about blending in, not being noticed, not looking like other or different. And there was a survival component to that. That was all about protecting ourselves from la migración, right? Those terrible stories we would hear of la migra coming by la factoría or houses or whatever, and scooping up the immigrants and deporting them, separating them from their families. So we lived in constant fear of that as a population. So assimilation was extraordinarily important for our survival. But that means what? Who am I really? If I didn't have to assimilate, what would I have been? What parts of my Latina have I left behind? What parts have I forgotten? What parts have I not been able to live into? And as we today have a conversation about bringing in our authentic selves and bringing our whole selves to work, to our families, to our friends, what is my authentic self? Who is my authentic self? ¿Quién es Nancy Reyes? I mean, this is like a really big question for me. And it shapes so much of my life and even the conversations that I'm having today.
That's awesome. When I was young, we lived in Puerto Rico. My two brothers are actually both Puerto Rican. And when you said Bayamon right now, the reason I smiled is, when we were young, we would hear El Tapón de Bayamon. You'll remember that phrase perfectly. Oh, so it brought back memories. So that was wonderful. I love hearing about the journey that Latinas have faced and just to see the differences and the similarities and what we go through in our career. Can you talk a little bit about your professional journey as a Latina? And I always talk about that as it's my secret sauce and gives me great perspective and opportunity to contribute in ways that probably not everyone can. Can you talk a little bit about that for yourself?
Sure. I think it's evolved over time, if I'm honest. I think part of what I learned growing up was the work ethic, working hard, keeping our head down, doing the best we can para luchar, sobrevivir, move forward, do better. So I carried that, I think, throughout my professional career, always working hard. I got into advertising, though, because I was part of a program. I was part of a diversity program at Ogilvy and Mather. They were bringing in a bunch of new folks, and they really wanted to diversify their workforce. And so I came into the industry a little bit by accident. But to be honest, at that time, I'm not even sure I paid much mind to who was around me, what kinds of people around me, how diverse were the people around me. I just kept putting my head down and moving forward and forward. And it wasn't probably until I started to develop as a leader, maybe 10, 15 years into my advertising career, that I started to notice just how different maybe I was than everybody else around me. There weren't many Latina women around. It's not part of, it was not part of the advertising makeup at the time. And certainly that's getting a little bit better today. Eventually, I think over time, as I got comfortable leaving behind all of those survival techniques around assimilation and leaning more and more into, as you said, the special sauce, right? El tapón de Bayamón. I mean, all of that stuff comes out. And it comes out more and more as I'm surrounded by more Latina and Latinos in the workplace, right? There's something about being on this call with you right now to be like, oh my God, we're two people sharing a similar experience. Like that's calling me, that's a little bit of home calling me. And I find that over time, as the years have gone by, I've become maybe more and more myself. Back to the first question that you asked me, maybe more and more of who I was meant to be before it all got stripped back or sort of pushed in, so that I wouldn't be noticed as much. So I feel much more comfortable in my own skin. I feel much more comfortable letting that out, but not in a in a way other than just this is who I am. And people seem to enjoy that, love to be around it, love to be a part of it. It is special what we have, and I have felt more comfortable over time, but it has taken me some time to get to this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of it is cultural, right? You're told head down, do your job and fit in. And I think what you realize over time is it actually has been an accelerator for you, if you will, and a way to actually provide different perspective and points of view that gives you a different perspective on the business to drive it forward and enable that, right? So, as you rise, you lift those behind you to be able to do more and more of that. So talking about a little bit about workforce, because I think that that is a natural, as you've taken on a bigger role and clearly as a president of TBWA, what does the workforce today in your organization look like? And what steps are you specifically taking to enhance that?
A great question, Rita. First of all, I have to say we're a work in progress because I refuse to put us up and say, look, we are perfection in the conversation that we're having today. We're far from it. But I think bringing a level of consciousness to the conversations is a major step forward. We used to talk about diversity as a client at the agency. We used to talk about treating diversity as a client. Why? Because we're an advertising agency. We service clients. We pull all-nighters for clients. We perform miracles for clients. So diversity should be treated at the same level as we treat our clients. And that's a natural language that people around us at the company could understand. But it didn't take more than last year's stunning and horrible events to realize that when we were really honest and truthful about the whole thing, we weren't treating diversity as a client at all. It had fallen by the wayside. So we doubled down on a lot of that stuff this year. And we designed a program that's going to sound great and logical and thorough and robust. But I have to say, it's still such a work in progress. And I have to admit that we need to iterate on it, that we need to continue to have the conversations, that we need to challenge each other and challenge ourselves to move forward. But we wanted to map the experience along the employee journey. So we divided up this effort into 5 different work streams. The first one we call representation. That's about how many of our people are diverse. How many people do we hire that are diverse, and how do we grow them wide across the organization, but also hierarchically across the organization, right? That's one key thing. Secondly, which is probably the most important one in my opinion, is a sense of belonging. Once we bring all of these diverse people in and up in our organization, how do we ensure that they feel a sense of community and belonging where they work? How do we ensure that we have the systems that enable them to succeed and not hold them back? Education is a third one. How do we educate our broad population on things like microaggressions and continuously mandate a curriculum where everybody has to take part in learning how to grow as an individual? The fourth is around the work. We produce ideas, as you know, and how do we really analyze the process of developing our work to ensure that diversity is a key step in every single part of that work process. And then the end is supplier diversity. How do we make sure that we're partnering with people who are diverse, minority, women-owned businesses, et cetera, to make sure that just from beginning to end, we're totally a diverse organization and an inclusive organization. Now, we spent a lot of time developing these work streams and talking about these work streams, but even ourselves, we found ourselves in this place where we probably overextended ourselves on the representation part by hiring a lot of people who were diverse. There was never a question that there's a ton of us that exist in the world ready to be hired, ready to make a mark in organizations. Really, the issue is, are we spending enough time growing that talent, developing that talent, and nurturing an environment for that talent to prosper and succeed? And that's where I feel like we've got much, much more work to do.
Yeah, it's a little bit of what you mentioned before, right? Which is you want to make sure that people feel the permission to share who they are and bring their best authentic self to the workplace to actually impact the work that we're doing. So on that, I think it would be interesting to just understand the brands that you work with around multicultural campaigns. And by the way, do you use multicultural campaigns? Or is it just part of the fabric of everything you do now? And why is having the diverse workforce in place to really drive that work important in making this happen?
Yeah, I think we don't normally talk about it as multicultural advertising because we have to accept the reality that the world has changed and the composition has changed. We're no longer talking about a minority audience, right? Diversity is everywhere, and we need to ensure that diversity is thought of front and center in all of the work that we do. And our brands are coming to expect it, not just from our diverse workforce, right? They're asking questions like how many of your employees come from diverse backgrounds, what kinds of programs are you having in order to enable their success and their growth? How do I know for sure that the ideas that you're bringing me are coming from diverse teams? How's it showing up in my work? So they're absolutely holding us accountable in that way. I think one of the things we're hoping to do, and we're hoping that more agencies do, is that we also hold our brands accountable for the exact same thing, right? We're either going to have this conversation, this two-way conversation, or we're not, because it's not just about brands offloading the need to be diverse to their agencies, but also participating in that same effort themselves. So it is about having those conversations. I don't think that we can say to clients that our ideas are diverse if we don't have the people behind the ideas being diverse themselves. That's where the change comes. That's where the energy comes. That's where the multiplication of ideas comes, is from actually having different kind of talent in the organization. Together with the brands and our clients, we've got to create the conditions for those ideas to exist. They may look different, the ideas, they may feel different, they're beautiful in their own way, but we've got to do a lot of work to educate our clients and our internal agency to understand the ideas, that the shape of the ideas that they take, and how to progress those ideas forward.
Totally. So as a society, and you talked a little bit about it, we're faced with obviously many challenges around bias and racial justice. And how do you see your role as a creative agency and the role of the marketers that you work with in moving things forward around this?
I think that creative people have a really big responsibility here. And that is because I just deep down believe that the thing that's going to progress us forward are ideas. 100%. An idea is what moves society forward. It's what progresses us. It's what changes the conversation and challenges us all to have the kind of conversations that we need to have. My biggest worry right now is that we're all going to get a little bit conservative. We're going to be afraid to have the difficult conversations. As somebody in my office says to us, to the leadership team, he says, we have to get comfortable with getting uncomfortable. And I worry. I worry that brands and agencies alike and creative companies are going to dial back for fear of alienation, retaliation, for fear of offending, versus leaning into it and being brave and saying, let's go ahead and put an idea out there that's going to cause some discomfort, but we need to have that conversation. That discomfort needs to exist in order for us to progress and actually move this thing forward together. It's in that discomfort that we're going to find the progress. And I worry that some brands and some agencies will shy away from it because they're afraid to tackle it.
I love that. Nancy, es un placer. It was a wonderful conversation. I so appreciate having you with us today.
Igualmente, muchas gracias.
And thanks everyone for watching this episode of Our Voices, Our Hopes, a series produced by BTV for the benefits of Boys and Girls Club of Puerto Rico. I hope you will join Disney in supporting this wonderful organization. And to find out more, just visit bgcpr.org. Thank you.